In today's Gospel, we read about Jesus at the Last Supper with his disciples, and there's a couple of interesting things about this account. First of all, there's the fact that the disciples don't know who he's talking about when he says that one of them is going to betray him. We often think of Judas as being this sort of nefarious character who was always sort of sneaking and skulking about, looking for any opportunity to betray Christ. But in actual fact, what this Gospel passage today indicates to us is that he's done a very clever job of hiding who he really is and what's really going on in his heart. And when I thought about that today, I thought, man, isn't that really a picture for all of us? Anytime we sin, we are betraying Christ, and we often do a very good job of hiding our sin. We're very good at putting up a front and pretending to be something that we're not. The other interesting thing about today's account is when Jesus talks about the fact that he is being glorified. And it might seem really strange and counterintuitive because we think about the cross and we think, what? The cross is this barbaric and awful act of humiliation. How can there be any glory in this? But that's to look at the cross through merely human eyes. When you look at the cross through the eyes of God, you see something much more profound going on. You see the glorious act of God's self-giving love. He is about to be glorified because on the cross we see just how much and how great the love of God is for each and every one of us. The other interesting thing about today's gospel is that passage at the end where Jesus says to Peter that he can't come with him to the cross, but he is still called to follow in his footsteps. And it's interesting because this really is a call to all of us. We are Peter. We are not called to substitute for Christ. We don't go to the cross with Christ. He goes to the cross alone. But we are all called to follow in his footsteps. We are all called to pick up our cross and follow Christ to that hill of Calvary. That is the heart, that is the very central calling of what it is to be a follower, a disciple of Christ. Today's saint quote of the day comes from Saint Thomas Aquinas, and he said this: "To love God is something greater than to know him." And this is the real problem when you think about it, that lies at the heart of the interactions between Christ and Judas. Judas knows all about Jesus, but there is no relationship of love present. And that's why he's so willing to betray him. Peter, on the other hand, has a relationship of love with Christ, and in spite of his own sinful failings, he will still follow in the footsteps of Christ. If we want to be more like Peter and less like Judas, we need to work hard to maintain that relationship. That love for Christ has to be real and present. And the ultimate way in which that love is lived out is through humble obedience. When we humbly obey the commands of Christ, we are building and strengthening that relationship with him.